The Elements of Style by William Strunk, Jr. Section 5. Elementary Principles of Composition, Rules 14 to 16. 14. Avoid a succession of loose sentences. This rule refers especially to loose sentences of a particular type, those consisting of two coordinate clauses, the second introduced by a conjunction or relative. Although single sentences of this type may be unexceptionable, see under Rule 4, a series soon becomes monotonous and tedious. An unskillful writer will sometimes construct a whole paragraph of sentences of this kind, using as connectives and, but, and less frequently who, which, when, where, and while, these last in non-restrictive senses. See under Rule 3. The third concert of the subscription series was given last evening, and a large audience was in attendance. Mr. Edward Appleton was the soloist, and the Boston Symphony Orchestra furnished the instrumental music. The former showed himself to be an artist of the first rank, while the latter proved itself fully deserving of its high reputation. The interest aroused by the series has been very gratifying to the committee, and it is planned to give a similar series annually hereafter. The fourth concert will be given on Tuesday, May 10th, when an equally attractive program will be presented. Apart from its triteness and emptiness, the paragraph above is bad because of the structure of its sentences, with their mechanical symmetry and sing-song. Contrast with them the sentences in the paragraphs quoted under Rule 10, or in any piece of good English prose, as the preface before the curtain to Vanity Fair. If the writer finds that he has written a series of sentences of the type described, he should recast enough of them to remove the monotony, replacing them by simple sentences, by sentences of two clauses joined by a semicolon, by periodic sentences of two clauses, by sentences loose or periodic of three clauses, whichever best represent the real relations of the thought. 15. Express coordinate ideas in similar form. This principle, that of parallel construction, requires that expressions of similar content and function should be outwardly similar. The likeness of form enables the reader to recognize more readily the likeness of content and function. Familiar instances from the Bible are the Ten Commandments, the Beatitudes, and the petitions of the Lord's Prayer. The unskillful writer often violates this principle from a mistaken belief that he should constantly vary the form of his expressions. It is true that in repeating a statement in order to emphasize it, he may have need to vary its form. For illustration, see the paragraph from Stevenson, quoted under Rule 10. But apart from this, he should follow the principle of parallel construction. Formerly, science was taught by the textbook method, while now the laboratory method is employed. Formerly, science was taught by the textbook method, now it is taught by the laboratory method. The left-hand version gives the impression that the writer is undecided or timid. He seems unable or afraid to choose one form of expression and hold to it. The right-hand version shows that the writer has at least made his choice and abided by it. By this principle, An article or a preposition applying to all the members of a series must either be used only before the first term, or else be repeated before each term. The French, the Italians, Spanish, and Portuguese. The French, the Italians, the Spanish, and the Portuguese. In spring, summer, or in winter. In spring, summer, or winter. In spring, in summer, or in winter. Correlative expressions, both, and, not but, not only but also, either or, first, second, third, and the like, should be followed by the same grammatical construction. Many violations of this rule can be corrected by rearranging the sentence. It was both a long ceremony and very tedious. The ceremony was both long and tedious. A time not for words, but action. A time not for words, but for action. Either you must grant his request or incur his ill will. You must either grant his request or incur his ill will. My objections are, first, the injustice of the measure, second, that it is unconstitutional. My objections are, first, that the measure is unjust, second, that it is unconstitutional. See also the third example under Rule 12 and the last under Rule 13. It may be asked, what if a writer needs to express a very large number of similar ideas, say 20? Must he write 20 consecutive sentences of the same pattern? On closer examination, he will probably find that the difficulty is imaginary, that his 20 ideas can be classified in groups, and that he need apply the principle only within each group. Otherwise, he had best avoid the difficulty by putting his statements in the form of a table. 16. Keep related words together. The position of the words in a sentence is the principal means of showing their relationship. The writer must therefore, so far as possible, bring together the words and groups of words that are related in thought, and keep apart those which are not so related. The subject of a sentence and the principal verb should not, as a rule, be separated by a phrase or clause that can be transferred to the beginning. Wordsworth, in the 5th book of the Excursion, gives a minute description of this church. In the 5th book of the Excursion, Wordsworth gives a minute description of this church. Cast iron, when treated in a Bessemer converter, is changed into steel. By treatment in a Bessemer converter, cast iron is changed into steel. The objection is that the interposed phrase or clause needlessly interrupts the natural order of the main clause. The objection, however, does not usually hold when the order is interrupted only by a relative clause or by an expression in apposition, nor does it hold in periodic sentences in which the interruption is a deliberately used means of creating suspense. See examples under Rule 18. The relative pronoun should come, as a rule, immediately after its antecedent. There was a look in his eye that boded mischief. In his eye was a look that boded mischief. He wrote 3 articles about his adventures in Spain, which were published in Harper's Magazine. He published in Harper's Magazine 3 articles about his adventures in Spain. This is a portrait of Benjamin Harrison, grandson of William Henry Harrison, who became president in 1889. This is a portrait of Benjamin Harrison, grandson of William Henry Harrison, period. He became president in 1889. If the antecedent consists of a group of words, the relative comes at the end of the group, unless this would cause ambiguity. The superintendent of the Chicago division, who, a proposal to amend the Sherman Act, which has been variously judged, a proposal, which has been variously judged, to amend the Sherman Act, a proposal to amend the much debated Sherman Act. The grandson of William Henry Harrison, who, William Henry Harrison's grandson, Benjamin Harrison, who. A noun in apposition may come between antecedent and relative, because in such a combination no real ambiguity can arise. The Duke of York, his brother, who was regarded with hostility by the Whigs. Modifiers should come, if possible, next to the word they modify. If several expressions modify the same word, they should be so arranged that no wrong relation is suggested. All the members were not present. Not all the members were present. He only found 2 mistakes. He found only 2 mistakes. Major R.E. Joyce will give a lecture on Tuesday evening in Bailey Hall, to which the public is invited, on My Experiences in Mesopotamia at 8 p.m. On Tuesday evening at 8 p.m., Major R.E. Joyce will give in Bailey Hall a lecture on My Experiences in Mesopotamia, period. The public is invited. End of section 5.